Hello, dear students. This is Dr. Muhammad Ali, and as I gave a brief introduction about this course on the last turn, this is the second course on power electronics that you are going to study. And in the first course, you studied about certain devices and DC to or AC to DC converters based on thyristors and the turning on and commutation circuits for thyristors. Here in this course, the major objective is to cover DC to DC converters uh, or choppers, then DC to AC converters that are known as inverters, and AC to AC converters, majorly the voltage regulators, and if possible cycloconverters as well. And we will be more concerned about the circuit topologies in this course rather than going into device uh, management, or we can say that we are not going to consider too much about what uh, semiconductor device we are going to use. For example, we can operate a power electronic converter using a MOSFET or an IGBT. Of course, there are certain advantages with the MOSFETs over IGBT or IGBT over MOSFETs depending on the application that is there, or the power level or the switching frequency uh, desired. For example, MOSFETs are better if we use them for high switching frequencies, and for high power ratings IGBTs are much better. In this course we are going to concentrate more on the uh, topology structure or the structure of the converter rather than going into the device physics. Uh, there are certain things like, for example, the components of a power electronic converter. In that there is a major component that is known as the gate driver circuit, and that we are going to deal with today in brief. And if possible, we are going to go in somewhat more detail in later on in this course. So let us begin with today's lecture. So we can classify the power electronic converters as DC to DC, DC to AC, AC to DC, or AC to AC. AC to DC converters are known as rectifiers. DC to DC converters are basically choppers. AC to AC are known as cycloconverters or voltage regulators. That I will elaborate these two terms later on in these slides. Then we have DC to AC converters that are known as inverters, and we are more familiar with this because we are having these type of converters in our house appliances, right? We use an inverter whenever the light goes off, inverters come into play, and our power is back. So now the class, this is one type of classification of power electronic converters. Other type of classification is based on voltage rating. That means we according to our load or the demand, we are going to design our power electronic converter. Okay, so for example, we are having a low voltage application. For that we don't require high voltage rating switches. So for that case, we are those applications will be known as low voltage applications. Uh, we will see the ranges of these voltages and even power. Nowadays, much work is going on in the scenario of medium voltage, high power applications, especially drives. By drives, we mean that machines of medium voltage and high power. And medium voltage, what is the range of this medium voltage and what is the range of high power or the power, we are going to see later on in after a few slides. So coming to DC converters, if I classify them, So we have non-isolated converters. That means there is no transformer in it. Okay, and these are buck converter, synchronous buck, uh, boost, buck boost, sepic, cuck, and zeta type of converters. We will see in our course some of these DC to DC converters, not all of them, but most of them will be covered. Then we have flyback converters, and in these converters energy is stored in magnetic field. By magnetic field we mean we can store it in the form of inductor, or we can store it in the form of transformer. So in any way, if you are storing the energy in the magnetic field, then it is a flyback converter. Then there are forward converters. Energy is transferred through a magnetic field, and the storage is not considered. In this, there are three types. Then we have high power converters. By high power, we mean we are talking in terms of kilowatts. So there is Weinberg, half bridge, full bridge, and then push pull. All these converters, uh, and all these converters are buck boost type. Okay, we have having buck over here and boost. Buck means we are stepping down the voltage. Whenever we are stepping down the voltage, is known as buck converter. Whenever we are stepping up the voltage, that means output voltage is more than the input voltage, then it is a boost converter. Then we have buck boost over here, right? Now all these converters after this buck boost are all buck boost type. That means we can either have a step up voltage or we can have a step down voltage. Okay, so all these DC to DC converters are buck boost type of converters, and we can classify them as flyback or forward converters. We'll see this later on in our course. Here I'm just showing you how many types of DC to DC converters can be there. Nowadays, work is going on high gain DC to DC converters. By using lesser number of switches, we can increase the voltage level. Like for example, if we are having a 12-volt battery and we want to address a voltage of, for example, if I say 100 volts, so I can use a high gain DC to DC converter in order to achieve that. uh, so lot of work is going on in this area, and there are certain students of BTech who are working on this even, uh, and they have published good papers. And I'm really very proud to say that some of our students from our department, they are working rigorously, and they have produced new topologies in this area. Now coming to the applications of DC to DC converters, uh, solar PV is one of them for maximum power point tracking, and electric vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles, more electric aircrafts, medical appliances, for example in X-ray machines. Then we have robots, robotic arms, uh, and wherever on in all those applications where battery management is required, uh, then we have to use DC to DC converters. For example, over here a typical solar PV system, we can see these are the solar panels over here. Okay, and we are having a DC to DC converter over here, and it is charging the battery bank. This is the battery bank. Okay, and then in the daytime these panels will be feeding the load through a DC to AC converter and feeding the grid. Okay, and in the night time this battery bank will be used to convert this DC to another DC value. Then this DC will be converted into AC, and then it will be fed to the grid. So this is one of the uses of DC to DC converter over here, and of course here it is a DC to AC converter or the inverter. In electric vehicle application, if you see over here, this is the battery pack, right, below our seats. In electric vehicles, if you go for all electric vehicle, that means there is no consumption of fuel, of petrol or diesel. Such cars use extensive or large battery banks and or battery pack, and this battery pack is charged regularly through or on in regular intervals through these charging ports. Okay, so this DC needs to be converted into other DC, because this on the terminals of this battery pack we are having 400 volt DC. So the main DC bus will be of 400 volts, or in nowadays research is going on to go for 800 volt DC. Now the appliances that are over here, there are also certain appliances that work on lower voltages of DC, for example 48 volts or 24 volts or 12 volts. So for in that case we need a DC to DC converter. Okay, so as to supply certain loads, for example wipers, the window rolling machines, then we are having some motorized control for these side mirrors, right? So we can have many applications to this, and we require a lower voltage. Now we are having another thing over here. See over here, there is an auxiliary battery. You see over here, this is an auxiliary battery. This battery is of lower voltage, but there is an interconnection between this battery and this pack. Sometimes we need to charge this battery through this, and sometimes we need certain energy from this battery back to this battery pack. So in that case, in order to come, because this is a 12 volt battery and this is a 400 volt battery pack, we need a DC to DC converter, right? So this is one of the system. Then we have AC systems, then we have thermal system or the cooling system. All these things require power electronic converters. Then see over here, this is a open more electric aircraft system. Nowadays researchers are very much concerned about more electric aircraft, so as to reduce the fuel consumption or the petrol or diesel consumption in the electric aircraft systems. So we can, just to give you an idea that we are using a DC to DC converter over here, then we have a power inverter, that means DC to AC, and here also we are having a DC to DC converter. So over here it is a bidirectional DC to DC converter. That means we can charge the battery back, or we can give the power to the electrical circuit through this battery, through this DC to DC converter. Here that we are having a DC to DC converter to power the DC loads. Okay, so we are having a 270 volt DC bus, and here we are having a 28 volt DC load. Okay, normally in our appliances that are we are using in our households, those work on 50 hertz, right? But in electric aircraft we are having a 400 hertz supply. Now we are not going much into much detail about these power converters that are used over here, but extensively power electronic converters are used in more electric aircraft systems. And then we are having this robotic electrical system, and you can see over here that we are using DC to DC converters. Okay, so DC to DC converters are required to, first of all, if there is a voltage mismatch between the load and the source. Okay, and second thing, we want, if we are having a DC source and at the load end we need to regulate it regularly, right? Then again we need to use a DC to DC converter, and we can regulate the output of that DC to DC converter by varying the duty ratio. This part we will see later on in the course. Now we are having DC to AC converters, that is the inverters. Major classification can be done on the basis of the source that is employed. So we are having a voltage source inverter and a current source inverter. Then we can classify on the number of phases. Okay, for example, we are having fans, that ceiling fans that we are having in our homes, right? Those machines are single phase machines. So if you want, we can use a single phase inverter, right, to drive a single phase load. Okay, then we have three phase inverters that are large inverters that are mostly used in the for industrial purposes. Then nowadays much work is going on in the multi-phase area. That means we can increase the number of phases. Okay, what is the benefit of this? The benefit is that the current rating of the appliances or the motors reduces. For a same power level and same voltage level, the current rating per phase will reduce. This is one of the major advantages. Then we can go from on the basis of number of levels. We are going to discuss the two level inverter in your third unit. Okay, but there nowadays work is going on multi-level inverters. That means at the output voltage, because it is DC to AC, right? So the output is AC. So that AC it should be perfectly sinusoidal, but it cannot happen. Okay, but we can introduce number of levels so that it is near to sinusoidal. Okay, it is near to sinusoidal. So two level inverters that we are going to consider most of the times, and it is now conventionally being used in the industry, and most of the times you will find in the industry the two level inverters, but they are moving on towards multi-level inverters as well. This reduces the voltage stress across the switches. Major concern was to reduce the voltage stress across the switches. The major usage of multi-phase inverter is to reduce the current stress that is on the switches and the motor phase. Now we can classify the inverters if you are connecting it to a standalone load, for example a machine, or for example water pumping system, then it is a standalone inverter. If you are connecting it from a generation unit to the grid, then it is a grid connected inverter. Then we can classify on the basis of voltage and power rating. So we have low voltage inverters, medium voltage inverters, and high voltage inverters. As I said, we will see later on. So if you see over here, it is below 2.3 kilovolts. If it is below 2.3 kilovolts, then it is a low voltage inverter. 2.3 kilovolt to 13.8 kilovolts is a medium voltage inverter, and above 13.8 kilovolt it is a high voltage inverter. So applications, let us see one by one. So for example, solar PV system, we are having an example over here. It is 8.16 kilowatt rooftop solar PV system that is installed somewhere in Europe, and in the daytime when there is sunlight, the light energy is converted into electrical energy, and that is passed, or we charge our battery bank, okay, through a charge controller. This is one of the expensive parts of solar PV systems. That means that always checks the state of charge of this power bank, and whenever it is approximately 90% or 95% charged, it will stop charging this battery bank. Why 95%? Why not 100%? Because we need that is related to the life of the battery. Okay, you must have heard that for even the laptops, right? For in the laptops, it is not advisable to keep all the time 100% fully charged. We should remove the charging for some time, so as to enhance the capability of the battery, or the time for which it is working with good performance. Then this DC is converted into AC using an inverter to give power to the AC loads that are in our homes, tube lights, bulbs, and the AC and other appliances. Okay, the surplus amount can be fed back to the grid. Okay, and sometimes it may be that we are not having any solar power. Okay, or it has been drained, so it is required, it is always required that we always connect it with the grid. So you must study this much more in your renewable energy course, and they must over there be explicitly explain how these systems work. Now, for example, another example for inverters is adjustable speed drives. This is an industrial drive, or we can say inverter. What is inside this? Let me explain what is inside this. We are having an AC supply that is coming from the grid side. We are converting it into DC. Okay, this is nothing but the rectifier circuit. So we are connecting we are getting a DC at this port. Then this DC is being converted into AC. That means this portion is the inverter, and these are controllable switches. We can control the voltage across the terminals of the induction motor. So this is basically an industrial drive, or how you will find in the industry. Okay, this is a laboratory prototype, and it is much larger than this because the components that are placed inside this are very far apart, and here the components are packed. So this is nothing but the open structure. That means these are the connection ports. Over here there is a control panel. This control panel basically can be removed, and you can find one of these drives in our laboratory at AMU in the drives lab. If you want to see how it looks, you can just go and see over there. We are running a 3-phase induction motor through this drive system. Okay, so we are having a 3-phase input over here. This circuit is inside this drive, and it is driving an induction motor. Similar construction is over here, exactly same construction, but it is nothing but a laboratory prototype, and this also is there in our laboratory, exactly this system. This has been made by VI Microsystems, that is based on Chennai. So there are research scholars that are who are working on this, and if anybody is interested, he may go and watch it. Now what happens over here is that we are converting DC into AC, but the power will flow from this side to this side only. You cannot flow the power from this side to this side. Why? Because we are having a rectifier over here, and it is not a controlled rectifier, it is an uncontrolled rectifier. So this and we know that the power flows from one direction to the other only in the case of diode. It cannot go from the other direction to the first direction, right? So in that case, if there is a condition that we are breaking operation, there is a breaking operation of this induction motor, the power will start flowing from this direction to this direction. So how we can control this power? We can apply a braking resistor over here. See over here, there are two terminals over here, and we are having a braking resistor. So this was out of context like that. So in this we are using 1200 volt 25 ampere IGBT in this circuit. Now we are having UPS always. Whenever we connect a computer, we use UPS, right? So in this we are having an inverter over here, because what we are having is a 230 volt input supply, and we convert it into DC using a rectifier, and we charge our battery. There is a huge there is a bulky battery inside that UPS always, if you see that, and then this DC is converted back to AC, regulated AC, and then it is through an AC switch. This is AC switch, okay. This is or we can say AC to AC converter or voltage regulator basically. This you will discuss in your second unit. So we are having two AC to AC converters that are connected over here, and it is feeding to the load. So whenever this power is on, right, this will bypass from here and it will connect to the load. And when there is no power, the battery will supply the power to the load or to the computer, okay. And simultaneously this will charge the battery from here. Now inverters are used in reactive power compensation in power systems, okay, as a STATCOM. So this you must be learning more when you learn about the static power devices, or power factor correction devices, or you can say that reactive power compensation is required, okay. So we can inject certain energy from this side, or we can draw certain energy from this side and store it over here. So a to and fro power flow can be done in this, and so the control is in our hands. When the control is in our hands, we can perform whatever requirement is there according to the grid. This PCC is nothing but the point of common coupling. So we are having HVDC transmission system, high voltage DC transmission system, in which we are having an AC system over here. Here we are having AC to DC conversion, and we transmit it through a DC network or DC transmission line and connect it through DC to AC converter to another AC system. So this AC system can interact with this AC system through inverters, right. Now these inverters are very high power and high voltage inverters. Now in wind energy generation systems, this is for example a wind energy farm, that is a huge wind energy farm in Denmark, 400 megawatt offshore wind power system. In these windmills, this wind interacts over here, and we are having two systems. I'm not going into much detail, but I'm just talking about the power electronic devices that are used. So we are having partial scale power electronics, and there is full scale power electronics. You know that in an induction machine, if we talk about in terms of rotor, the power is slip times the power, right. So that is why, because we are interacting with the rotor side of this induction machine, induction generator or induction machine, so that is why the power rating of these switches will be slip times the actual power that is flowing in the main circuit, okay. Here, as we are connecting our system or a power electronic system on the main path of the electric power, so this will not be of slip power, it will be of main power. So that is why it is written as full scale power electronics, and here it is written as partial scale power electronics. Now coming to the AC to AC converters, we are having, as I told you, that we are having voltage regulators in which we can control the voltage only. This can be classified as single phase and three phase. And then we have cycloconverters. In cycloconverters, we can control the voltage as well as the frequency, but partial frequency. And these we can see, we know that this have been extensively used in electric traction systems. And we are having matrix converters that are being worked on right now, and especially these are used for niche applications, for example tanks, or you can say ship propulsion systems, and then the expensive appliances. So we are having voltage control with wide frequency control. What we require in power electronic conversion over here is that we must be able to control the voltage as well as the frequency. Sometimes we don't need to control the frequency, then we will use the voltage regulators. Okay? For example, stabilizers that are being used in our homes are nothing but AC to AC converters that are controlling the voltage only. We need not control the frequency. So this is a matrix converter that is made by Yaskawa, and it is being employed in the ship system in various places: air conditioning systems, cranes, winches, and different places, at different places. And this is the structure basically. Okay, so these are bidirectional switches. 9 bidirectional switches are used, and this is the input side filter, and we are also having output side filter because we are using induction motor, so sometimes we don't require that. So this is the basic structure of this, and here the power can flow from this side to this side or from this side to this side. That is why it is in motoring and regenerative. Now this is the matrix converter prototype that is in our laboratory at AMU. So if anybody wants to take a look, then you're feel free to go to the drives lab and see it. Right now there is no one working on it, but maybe in near future somebody would work. So we are having a large load over here. This is a multi-phase matrix converter basically. That means input side is 3 phase, output side is 9 phase. We can go up to 9 phase. Now you will appreciate that in every part of our system, energy systems, we need power electronics nowadays. So in order to convert the energy that is stored in the battery to the industrial part, we need a DC to AC converters. So you can see over here, I just leave it to up to you to see wherever we are using DC power electronics. So you'll find that in each and every stage we need power electronics nowadays. Okay, and this has been taken from PPT that was made by Fred Belabjer. He is one of the great professors of power electronics at University of Aalborg. So major components of power electronic converters. Here we are having a power converter, and what are the major components? Okay, first of all we need power switches, of course, right? For example, IGBTs, MOSFETs, thyristors, GTOs, etc. Then we need a gate driver circuit. Then we need digital controller, heat sinks, cooling system, sensor circuits. You will appreciate this after in the next few slides how we are going to see. Now we are having a power converter over here, power electronic converter, that is made up of power switches. This is the source and this is the load. We need the supply over here according to our load, but this source was not able to produce that kind of supply, so we used a power electronic converter to convert this electric power into another electric power that is applicable to this load. Now to have a controlled environment, what we will do is we will sense the parameters that are over here. What can be those parameters? That can be voltage, that can be current, that can be speed, depending on the load. Okay, if it is a motoring system, for example, there is a motor and we need to control its speed, then we need to regularly sense that speed, right? So we need to have different sensor circuits. Okay, this sensor circuits will sense those voltage, current and speed, and they will feed back to the controller and ask what should we do, and according to the decision made by the controller, it will give signal to the power converter that you must switch in such a manner that the output of the power converter should suit the load, right? So if we talk about the devices, power switches, I'm going to take some time to talk about the switches. Now what is the scenario right now? So first thing in terms of devices, and second line over here it is in terms of topologies. That means what are the circuit. So we are having devices, and when we place it in a circuit, we get different kind of circuits, right? So we are having power semiconductor devices. So major thing that occurred in this was, first of all, we were having mercury arc rectifier, vacuum tube rectifier or thyratron. So this was a bulky or and large uh, system. Then the invention of thyristor revolutionized the study of power electronics. Then we had power diodes and all those all through these years, and from this to this there was a huge transition in the size. Okay, you can go to the internet and see what was the difference between the size of this and the size of this, and what were the requirement to turn on and turn off these devices, and what was the requirement to turn on and turn off the devices. You will appreciate that the system was entirely different and the size reduced by a lot more, by a lot. So here the researchers invented IGBT, which was another revolution. IGBT revolutionized the power electronics in a major manner. Then the next was in early 2000s, where we got the wide band gap devices, that means the SiC, silicon carbide, and gallium nitride power devices. This SiC increased the power range. Okay, that means SiC based IGBTs or MOSFETs. SiC, here the technology was silicon. Okay, here we changed to silicon carbide and gallium nitride based power devices. Okay, that means silicon carbide based MOSFET or IGBT. Okay, and gallium nitride based MOSFETs and IGBTs. Gallium nitride is used, gallium nitride based power devices are used when we are going for higher switching frequency, and silicon carbide are used when we are going for more power. Okay, or higher voltages. Now on the second line we can say this is the advancement in the circuit topology. So in the phase there were three different phases. In the second phase many circuit topologies were made, and still they are going through this process, but in this zone major circuit topologies were made, and here after 2000 these topologies were being started implemented in the actual applications. Okay, and their performance was evaluated in a real sense. So coming to the I was saying about it, talking about the low voltage, medium voltage and high voltage. So these are, you can see the appliances over here. We are having inverters, motor control, electric vehicle, UPS in medium voltage range. High voltage range we are having windmills, smart power grid, in which power can be controlled in a smart fashion. Here, so this is one scenario. Okay, this is by one professor basically. Another professor who is a very good professor, that is who is known by the name of Bin Wu. In his book, he has given his range of medium voltage high power drives. Okay, this person Blabjer, Professor Blabjer and Professor Bin Wu, they are two pioneers of this power electronics field. So in this, his range of medium voltage was 2.3 kilovolts to 13.8 kilovolts. Okay, and high power was 0.4 megawatt to 40 megawatt. This was the range by Bin Wu. And what is this circle? This circle shows that this is the range in which most of the drives are there. Okay, most of the medium voltage high power drives will fall in this range. Okay, however the range is this much, but this is the range in which major power electronic devices will fall. Okay, now coming to the power switches. this seems to be a bit complex, but it's not as complex as it seems. Okay, so what is shown over here is this is the current on this axis, and this is the voltage in this axis. So we can see over here the SCR, silicon controlled rectifier. It can block up to a voltage of 12 kilovolts, but as we increase the voltage, the current capability is small. But if we increase the current carrying capability, the voltage will reduce. Voltage blocking capability will reduce. But still, it is still used for very high voltages. Okay. Now next it comes the GTO or GCT. GT is gate turn off transistor, and GCT is, or sometimes it is known as IGCT, gate commutated thyristor or integrated gate commutated thyristor. Then comes the IEGT or injection enhanced gate bipolar transistor, and here we are having the IGBT. Okay, as we increase the current, see, for each and every device you see that when you increase the current capability of a device, the voltage will fall down. Voltage blocking capability of the device will fall down. I talked in our earlier course on power electronics regarding this. What is the blocking? What is meant by the blocking capability, and what is the current capability of the power device or power semiconductor device? Now here you will appreciate that as we increase the voltage, here we were talking in terms of voltage and current capability of the device. Here I am talking about voltage, the blocking voltage, and the switching frequency. That what do you mean by switching frequency? How fast we can turn on and turn off the switch. Okay, and this is very crucial. The MOSFETs can be switched at a very high frequency, 1 megahertz or more. Next comes the IGBT, then the GTO. But as we reduce the switching frequency, the device's power rating or the voltage rating increases. So thyristors are can be turned on and turned off not as frequently as GTOs or IGBTs or MOSFETs. Their switching frequency is maximum limited to 200 to 200 Hertz. But they can be applied for very high voltage ratings. And this one major reason is what? We need to turn off and turn on, and we need a special turning on structure and turn off structure, that is known as a commutation structure. Now with the advent of new technology, that is the silicon carbide and gallium nitride, as I told you, if we want to move on from silicon to gallium nitride and there is a desire to increase the switching frequency, then we will move from silicon to gallium nitride. And if we are having a desire to increase the voltage capability of a device, for example SI IGBT, that means silicon based IGBT, if I want that its power rating should be increased, I will go for silicon carbide IGBT. Okay, and if I want that a silicon IGBT to perform with higher switching frequency, I will go for gallium nitride based IGBT. I think this is clear now. Okay, and these are the various applications in which we are working right now. This area is still under research. Okay, now this is the combination of these two. Okay, this is the combination of these two. So if we are having IGBT, if I want that I should go for higher power, I expand in this area, expand through shift to SiC or silicon carbide. If I want to move from silicon based IGBT to to gallium nitride based IGBT, I will expand through the shift to gallium nitride. Alright, so this is what I want to express it from here. Similar case is for MOSFET. Now coming to device structure. Here we can see a diode based 3-phase rectifier. Here we are using 2 diodes instead of 1. So what we can do, we can have 2 structures. One is known as the press pack, another one is known as the module. In module, the structure of the diodes, what we do is we use this as a single leg. This is known as one leg, and this over here represents the one leg, and there are several heat sinks in between to gather the heat that is generated by turn on and turn off of these diodes, and it will just expel this heat through this heat sinks outside. Okay, so this is press packed. That means we have installed the IGBTs over here and we have pressed it, and here this is used for higher voltage ratings. This structure is used for higher voltage rating. For lower voltage ratings, that means if you see over here, it is 4.45 kilovolt, 0.8 kiloampere. This one here it is 1.7 kilovolt, 1.2 kiloamperes. Okay, for this we are using this one. This is a module. This structure is always known as a module. Okay, so by structure, if you see this one and this one, you will automatically understand that this will be known as the module and this will be known as the press pack. So this again, if you see this structure, these are modules. This is even a module. So these are the modules for IGBT. These are the modules for the diodes, and always there is a chit that is placed on each and every module, which will describe the structure, what is inside this. So we are having in this 4 diodes. Okay, that defines the a leg of the rectifier. Here we are having an IGBT module in which 2 IGBTs are connected. So this is one IGBT module, this is another IGBT module. So you can see, you can understand the size of this by seeing this pen. This again is approximately of this size, half of this size, and this is the Semicron 1.2 kilovolt 100 ampere IGBT module. These are available in our lab also. Now coming to the sensors, we need voltage sensors, we need current sensors, and we need speed sensors. This is a speed sensor, which is also known as a proximity sensor. Okay, you must be knowing about the metal detector. You know metal detector, right? Yeah, it is always there on the airports, and so whenever there is a metal that is near this, so you can see this is a rotor of the machine. When it will rotate, whenever it will come across this metal portion, it will count, and whenever it will come across the gap, it will not count. So we can use this mathematics to calculate the speed of this rotor, right? Here this is the current sensor. Special circuits are there. If there will be time, then I will show you the circuits later on in the course. So we are having this LA55 current sensor that can sense up to 55 amperes of current. Okay, here we are having LV25, so we can measure large voltages and large currents using these sensors. Now this specific blue color tells us that these sensors are Hall effect sensors. You will study in detail about these sensors in your instrumentation course. Now the controllers, we are having DSP. This is made by TI, Texas Instruments. It is a big company and it provides the controllers. Okay, So these two controllers are being used regularly in our labs to generate the digital signals to the power electronic converters. Now the signal that is being generated through this digital controller cannot be directly given to the power electronic converter, that means the IGBT. If I take the DSP, this is the DSP, and at this pin we are generating, for example, a signal to turn on an IGBT. I cannot give it directly. This is turn on signal that is coming. I cannot give it directly to this gate of this IGBT. There are certain reasons to it. The first reason is that in IGBT, what is there? There is a capacitance over here. So what will happen if I directly connect from this pin? If I take this output of this pin and I give it directly to this port, this is a low voltage, low current system. Okay. So initially, when I will just give this on, turn on, if I ask this IGBT to be turned on directly from this, it will demand a large amount of current because this capacitance needs to be charged, right? So a gate driver accepts a low power input from the controller IC and produces the appropriate high current gate drive for a power driver device. So it will provide that current that is required to charge this gate capacitance. And another thing is that it provides this isolation from this electronic circuit that is on the low voltage and low current side to the high voltage and the high voltage and high current side. So this provides the isolation also. So expanded form of this can be shown over here. So we have this IGBT and this R gate is same as this. If you see over here, this is a chip basically. This is known as TLP250 chip. And here, if you see over here, we are having a light emitting diode, okay, or LED. So this is what is known as the optical isolation. We are providing an optical isolation between this electronic circuit that is coming from here and this power electronic circuit. Another thing that we do over here is we are having a 3.3 volts that is from at the output of the DSP pin. Okay, we amplify this voltage to 15 volts. Okay, that is another thing. We also amplify that voltage. So here we are having a push-pull type of a structure, push-pull amplifier. You must have studied in your electronics course. That is being used to enhance the voltage or rise the voltage from 5 volts or 3 volts to 15 volts approximately. So I hope that you have got the point of what is the need for the gate driver circuit. Okay, the major need is to give that high current that is required, which the DSP is not able to provide. Now coming to some of the this setup basically was built in IIT Delhi. This is a 3-phase voltage source inverter that is placed over here. This is the output of this, so that is being watched on the oscilloscope. This is a 415 volt 3-phase 10 kVA inverter. Okay, and this is the internal structure of this. I'm going to show you one thing. See over here, this one over here. You are seeing this one, this part. These are nothing but the IGBTs or the discrete IGBTs. Here I have shown you this one, right? These IGBTs are not discrete. They are two devices in one. Okay. Here we are using discrete IGBTs. So in three-phase inverter we require 6 switches. So 6 switches are mounted on the heat sink. This is the major point that I want to make out over here. This is top view of this, and this thing, because it is switching at a fast speed, we need to expel that heat that is generated during turn on and turn off of these devices through a heat sink. Okay, so we are having this structure. You see, this is side structure, and you see over here this one, this black portion, this is nothing but the rectifier that I was talking about. Okay, if we see over here again, here in the back, where was see over here, this one, right? So we are having a rectifier, three-phase rectifier, and we are converting it to AC. Now what are we doing over here? We are using a single phase rectifier only. In this circuit, this one is a single phase rectifier diode bridge, and that is also mounted on a heat sink. This structure is basically made of aluminium, and you see there is a space over here. What we'll use is, we'll use a fan. There is a fan over here. The fan will drag the heat out of this structure from the other side. There is a fan over here that will work, and it will just expel the speed or the heat from the other side, and the heat that is generated from this rectifier circuit and the IGBTs will be expelled through this heat sink. So you can see why I am showing you this. The reason is that this becomes the major part or major space taking area of the inverter. If I remove this, if I don't require this, then our power converter will be very small in size, right? So this needs to be considered, and there are specific courses even on NPTEL, if you want to see, that discusses the optimum design of these heat sinks or the thermal design of the power electronic converters. The approximate cost that was incurred in making this setup was approximately 30,000. We are having one of this kind in our lab also, an NCE lab on the top floor of electrical engineering department at AMU. So if anyone want to see it, just go over there and on the top floor, and you will find the non-conventional energy lab, NCE lab. You can just go over there and see this inverter prototype. Here we are having 6 switches. Over there are 8 switches. So the course, coming to the last topic of today, that is what is the course of this. We will discuss about the DC to DC converters, various types of DC to DC converters, buck boost, boost, cuck converters. Then this analysis is very important related to all these converters. Then we have isolated DC to DC converters, flyback, forward, push pull. All these structures will be seen. Then we have AC to AC converters. Most of the times it will be related to voltage regulators, and we will not be discussing about matrix converters or cyclo converters in this portion. Maybe some portion of cyclo converter will be there. Then coming to the DC to AC converter, that is the major concern of this course, and we will see the operation of an inverter using in a single phase system and a 3-phase system, and how the performances of it, how it performs with RL load, RLC loads, and then we will see the basic concept of 180-degree conduction, 120-degree conduction, and their waveforms, and then their Fourier analysis of the output waveforms. Then one of the important thing is the final unit, that is the PWM techniques and the harmonic analysis of the output voltage with selective harmonic elimination. Selective harmonic elimination is a technique in which we remove certain harmonics that are in the output voltage using certain angles. So that we this is more mathematical, and this can be understood using diagrams and all. So these are certain books references that you can see by Jamil Asghar sir of our department. Then we have M.H. Rashid. This is a handbook, Power Electronics Handbook. There are two books of M.H. Rashid, Power Electronics and Power Electronics Handbook. A handbook, it is different from a major. This is a textbook, and this is the handbook. Handbook contains different chapters written by different authors who are expert in this field, in their respective field, and they give their chapter to this book. And in this whole book has been written by M.H. Rashid, and he has discussed extensively in a very good manner different power electronic topologies. So in this book, the handbook, I also have two book chapters in this book. Okay, then I will on a regular basis consider talking about different research papers also. So this was all for today. On the next turn, we are going to continue with the DC to DC converters. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I hope that you will enjoy this whole course.